Hey everybody, welcome. Transition to telehealth day 8. Getting buy-in and fly your geek flag high. All right guys, what have I been hearing about today? I have been hearing about concerns from a lot of people about agencies that are very quickly transitioning to telehealth. And one of the quotes today was jumping to get on this telehealth thing and providing absolutely no training. And so I thought today I would address that, and that's what I'm getting into when I say buy-in. I'll explain that in a little bit. Here's the bottom line. Direct in-home ABA services simply cannot equal telehealth. So if you as a BCBA right now are thinking, okay, I had this in-home program that was working really well, and now I just need to reschedule my supervision sessions to be on telehealth, we're so far off from the myriad of changes that we need to be addressing. So what am I going to talk to you guys about? I'm going to talk about how now more than ever we need to make sure that we are not relying on standardized curriculums and blanket prompting protocols across all clients and inserting next SD here. By the way, it takes a lot of work to make something an SD, so please be careful with that. It's an instruction initially. And another, by the way, trauma-informed care is an area that I think we're all gonna have to start to pay way more attention to. I'm fortunate, I've been in community living for a while, so even as an ABA provider, I had to become fairly well educated in this. And I think we all need to recognize that the families that you're working with now, especially if you're transitioning to telehealth, they are currently in a traumatic situation. So besides the fact that a traditional in-home ABA program likely should not look the same as a telehealth program in terms of the goals, the measurement strategies, the teaching procedures, on top of it, we need to recognize that we are engaging in a time that requires an increased focus on trauma-informed care. I don't have time to get into that today, but I am going to geek it out with you guys. I promised. I said wave my geek flag high, right? So why am I concerned? Hopefully everyone understands that that would be a concern for people to rush into a completely new way of interacting with families, yet not have any specified training in it. But I'm always going to come back to my same concerns, is that as we're transitioning to telehealth right now, we need to make sure that we're protecting against any potential decreases in our service integrity, because that will immediately contribute to poor quality outcomes, and poor quality outcomes will directly impact future funding for ABA, all right? And now in this current situation, it made me think about 20 years ago that we had two types of parents that were in ABA. We had the one that was completely, totally pro, and three types of parents. One, totally pro, although that was like a really small percentage of them. That's why I thought of the two types, because there was really just two types, all right? One that was totally anti-ABA, and we knew exactly what to say to them and how to explain their concerns and address the fact that their feelings of being anti-ABA likely are misinformed, but we would never say you're misinformed, and we were good at it. And then we had the other parents who had absolutely no idea what it was, and we knew exactly what to say to them as well, all right? Now, recently, before we had to deal with this transition to telehealth, I noticed that I was getting phone calls from parents that were not totally pro, totally anti, or didn't know what it was. They were pretty pro. Usually it would be a parent of an adolescent, a young adult, or an adult with some severe problem behaviors, and they would end up on the phone with me, and whoever had recommended the service to them said, call the Center for Applied Behavior Analysis. And when they would call me, they would say, look, I'm not sure why the recommendation came in. My child received ABA for many years, and we enjoyed it. It was fine. It's just not what we need right now. And when I would dig in to try to figure out exactly what was going on, more often than not, I would realize pretty quickly that that parent thought that we were going to come to their house and run discrete trial training sessions at their kitchen table with their young adult all day long. So we already had concerns about people's understanding of what ABA is, all right? And whenever I'm concerned about that, I always say it's unbelievably important to get back to the basics. And I'm wondering now, is getting back to the basics here protect us with these changes when we have BCBA supervisors who have amazing skill sets, but think, okay, I'm just gonna do it on a video now, right? All right, well, now more than ever, it's not just about taking that 5, 10, 15 programs, especially if they were all discrete trial, and just now telling them about it on a telehealth thing at all, guys, at all right? Because as I keep saying, right now more than ever, we're gonna have to be teaching caregivers and who we're talking to on the telehealth model here, the importance of teaching the why, all right? So the parents who thought that it wasn't gonna work initially or were anti, and the more recent parents who actually had a pretty good experience, but for whatever reason, after being in ABA services for an extended period of time, they were left thinking that that meant that we were only gonna do discrete trial. That leads me to believe that whatever BCBA was supervising that traditional in-home program for the majority of that adolescent young adult's life did not teach that caregiver the why. And I think teaching them the why would have been a really good idea, all right? So when I was thinking about all of this and thinking, okay, how do I tie this back? I'm thinking about buy-in. I'm thinking about the fact that a long time ago we had parents that were anti or didn't know, and then semi-pro but didn't think that we needed it. All right, hold up. What are some of the common complaints about ABA? One of them is the use of our technical language, right? So there was an article that came out sometime in the last few years, and they were arguing that we needed to avoid the use of our technical language because it could decrease the social validity of our treatment. That's a really big statement, right? That means whether or not people think that ABA is valid, okay? Whenever I bring this quote up and I ask for the BCBAs, more often than not, the majority of people will say, well, yeah, I have concerns about that. And I totally understand. And I'm just gonna take you guys through a couple examples today. So let's go with a real basic one. Examples regarding our technical language and whether or not using it is gonna decrease the validity of our treatment, and that we're trying to deal with buy-in, and that we know that there were parents that were already not necessarily on board, and now we're transitioning them to telehealth, and now some BCBAs might be just simply trying to adapt the program that was already in place, not recognizing that there's a whole new environment going on now, which requires us to readjust our clinical programming, okay? So some examples. Here's a quote. It was a great session. He had absolutely no behaviors. That's not a good session, because that means the client died, all right? That is, I know, it seems a little extreme, but that is what that means, guys. And here's the problem. If you just stick to your technical and say, okay, it's not technically no behaviors, because a behavior can be either good or it can be bad, and you're talking to a caregiver and you say this, that's not gonna be very meaningful to them, right? Now, some of you might be thinking, well, of course, I wouldn't even correct somebody if they said it was a great session, he had absolutely no behaviors. So stay with me. Why am I saying that we need to relook at that statement? He had a great session, there were no behaviors. Ha ha, that means the person's dead. It's not funny. Why am I bringing that up? Because the exact same basic behavioral mechanisms, the exact same science that informs behavior analysis, that informs applied behavior analysis, that exact same approach tells us exactly why we're gonna see good behaviors improve in the same way that we would see challenging behaviors decrease. So I'm gonna argue that in a moment when a parent says it was a great session, he has no behaviors, we need to correct them and say, actually, we need to focus on saying challenging behaviors. But again, I'm not just doing that because that's technically correct. I'm gonna take a moment and I'm gonna explain the why. Why is that so important? Because if I miss this opportunity to orient them to the fact that everything that they're doing throughout the entire session, well, day, if it's a parent that's now working with their child, to hopefully decrease the occurrence of problem behavior, that they also need to be recognizing that their behavior and everything they're doing throughout the entire day is exactly what is going to, if they're doing it correctly, going to improve meaningful behavior and the replacement behaviors that we need to improve in order to decrease the problem behavior. So I'm gonna argue that our technical language in correcting someone when they say there were no behaviors definitely doesn't impact social validity of treatment in a bad way. I'm gonna say that we're actually maximizing that opportunity to improve social validity of treatment, right? That's my example. I'll give you one other. It's another one that I go to all the time. Do not tell me that extinction means that you're ignoring someone, all right? It just doesn't. And if you say that, that means that we don't understand the basic functions of behavior, because depending on the function of behavior, you're actually going to be talking to someone if you're implementing extinction. And again, explaining that extinction actually means breaking the response reinforcer relationship. If you're interacting with a caregiver in a telehealth model and you are trying to explain to them what is reinforcing challenging behavior, and now you have this great BIP that's FCT plus extinction, but you slip and say ignore, if that problem behavior was maintained by escape from demands, you're missing the opportunity to teach them the why, and now they could potentially be reinforcing problem behavior. So we gotta come back to that. Another moment of our technical language. My favorite is the kiddo didn't generalize it. Yeah, I know. Let's not say kiddo. It's upsetting to a lot of people. So that's not my problem with it, though. That's not the technical language part. Here's the technical language part. We should say we didn't observe generalization. Again, boy, do I seem annoying. Waving the geek flag. Stay with me. If I don't correct that person who said the kid didn't generalize it and say, hey, you know what, we really need to say we didn't observe generalization. If I don't correct that, well, first of all, if I just correct it and leave it there, I'm definitely impacting the social validity of ABA services. That doesn't mean anything to anybody else. If I correct it, but then I explain the why, and I say, look, I know this seems silly that I'm saying we can't say the kid didn't generalize it. Instead, we need to say we didn't observe generalization. It's not just that that's the technically accurate definition. What am I doing in that moment? If we say the kid didn't generalize it, we're putting the locus of control inside the child, meaning we're saying there's something wrong with them. It is their fault. If we use our technical language and instead say we didn't observe generalization, now we're increasing the likelihood that everyone involved in this scenario, you, the person on the other side of the screen, who they're gonna talk to, oh, hold on, we didn't observe it. Well, then what do we need to do, right? What needs to change in the environment? Not that there's something wrong with the child. So it's a technical language thing, but I worry that people are so quick to want to avoid our technical language because it might impact social validity. Hopefully those few examples show you how if you not only not avoid it, but you use it and you explain the why, I'm actually arguing that we're gonna have increased treatment adherence, we're gonna have improved treatment outcomes, and exponential buy-in, guys. So my argument is always that we need to come back to the basics. In order to do that, you need to make sure that you've mastered the basic behavioral mechanisms that are influencing the procedures and the treatment recommendations that you're making. That's it. I hope it makes sense. And as I always say, you gotta opt in for ABA right now, guys. We gotta reconsider the standardized curriculums, reconsider your data collection system, because if you think that's where the evidence base is of ABA, then that means we're not going back to decades of basic experimental research that demonstrates the reliability of behavior environment interactions at the level of reinforcement, extinction, generalization, discrimination. When a procedure is not working, you have to be able to break it down and say, okay, what one of these things is or isn't going on? And then you can come back and adjust your procedures. And if you're taking the time to explain that part of the process to the caregiver, they're gonna do better. They just are, guys. You gotta become a master of our science. This is the time, especially when everyone's questioning everything. All right, that's all I had for today. I look forward to seeing everyone on day 9, because it's a transition to telehealth. Don't just rush in. Don't just think that that just means you're rescheduling your sessions to be online. Trauma-informed care, adjusting for quality of life, recognizing that what you do in one session is not about that session. It's about implementing ABA-based services to improve 24/7 behavior change. Are you doing that in your telehealth? I hope so. I know the CABA people are focused on it. I'm trying to help. I hope it's helpful. Hang in there, everyone. See you tomorrow.